everybody. I'm going to make this really quick because the whole purpose of this screencast is to orient you on a couple of really key things, critical things. So if you're running into an issue with user accounts or anything like that, like logins, this is the video to watch because this will basically show you what you got to do. You can look over the articles, the documentation. There's a whole category dedicated to the new edition here. Now I'm running on stage here because this is not quite in production yet when I made this video, but what you're seeing should be pretty close to what you're going to use in production. So let's just jump over to customer accounts, and as you may have already read, there's now two different kinds of what do you want to call it, account lists. Basically, customers and users are two different separate entities. So you have customer accounts and then you have users, customer users. Customer users are portal users that are customers. Your staff users would be yourself or anybody that you've allowed to log in as an admin. And a customer, previously, customer accounts had basically a primary user account associated with it, and it had to be a one-to-one relationship. So you had to have an email address that matched, like for example, if I go to users here in this view, this is a different view you've never seen yet. But you can see now that a particular user can be bound to multiple customers now. You don't have to worry about duplication, like that when you go to enable an account and the user email address is already there, it will just allow you to bind that user to other customer accounts. So let me give you a quick example. If we're looking at this test data here, and let's jump into users. On this one, there's a single user. That's the one that Intuit kind of gives us to play with on this. But if I wanted to add that other user I was just showing you, I can basically just add a new user. But if I duplicate the email address, it's just going to warn me. So if I was to put, I think it's this one. Okay, so it says the user you entered is an existing user. We have pre-populated the form with their data. You can click the clear button to start over. So what it would do is basically set the same user. It will just bind the existing user to it. And at the same time, you can just type it in here and search like that. Let's just clear the whole thing so you can see how that works. So I know the name John. Okay, this is the user there. So I want to make them an admin, and they can pay. I'll click save, and so now they're set up. I also want this is where you toggle, like if you want to know who's going to get billing notifications. There used to be a tab for that, right? No more. There's just a button here to turn automation on and off, and then there's the same thing for pausing. Like if I want to pause it let's see here, pause for until a certain date. Like don't send out anything any past due notices until this date, right? But I'll leave it off. Right, so I'm going to turn that off for now. But right now, if you were to look at this account, only this particular user is going to get notifications. And if I click on the send email, you'll see that they're the only one in the send email to. If I turn on this one, now they're both on, and I click the send email, now I've got both. I can go and remove one manually if I'm sending the email manually. So if I don't want Amy to get it, I can just uncheck that, and now I only have that one. Alright, so, and you'll notice some new stuff here as well. Like if I just want to send a test to myself, you used to have to type it in and all that. You don't do that anymore. You just click that button or that checkbox, and now it's in test mode. If I hit send, it'll just send it to myself, and it won't affect the sent status of any invoice. Alright, so that's that. Alright, now if I was to go back to switch to user account view, that's this one here, customer users, you'll see that user John now has access to Amy's bird sanctuary. So you might be wondering, well, what if I want to remove them? Well, you can either go into Amy's bird sanctuary and just simply click here and say remove user from this account, or from this screen, just click on this little menu here remove, and they're off. So if I go back to Amy's, actually I could do it. Hang on, I'll show you a few other shortcuts. That's when I'm going back. If I go up here and hit Amy, I can also quickly just open it this way. Nice little shortcut, right? You'll notice a couple other things I'm doing. So, like, there's little shortcuts now for closing and opening things, which may seem a little bit, you know, like, what's the big deal? But if you're doing a lot of work and you're moving around, like having to go over here and click up in the right-hand corner, all you got to do is just hit anywhere in the header here. It'll close. Same thing for even transactions. Like if you're opening an invoice here, just click there, or a payment. Just close it again by hitting that. It's just really great. Like you can just move around quickly. But let's go back to users, and you'll see now that user is removed. And it's very easy just to add them back. No problem. It won't change anything. That it doesn't affect their login or anything like that. They're in. Just check that off. Actually, I think I'm going to change that. It should be on by default. I think when you enable a new customer, the primary user will be enabled for billing notifications, but I think it's going to be a little bit of a pain to have to keep doing that. Like, I think the idea is usually they would get it. So the default will be on. I think I'm going to change that. I'll make a note of that. All right, so let's remove this guy again. All right, so he's off, and you'll see it actually updated here as well. He's not on there anymore. Couple quick things. If you're looking at this view, you'll notice what are these things? Well, the little crown, that means that they are, if you mouse over it, that's the primary customer user, and they have full admin permissions. So on any particular customer, there has to be some primary. Okay, so in this case, this one is it. And you can't remove them. Like then and the primary user always has full permissions. So like there's always one user that has, full permissions. That's the little crown part. The little check mark is for each user, that's their default account. So you're probably wondering, well, what does that mean? Well, let's look at this John record again. The John record they have access to 3 accounts, but one of them is their default. And so why do we need that? Well, let's say I'm going to log in as this user. When I log in, the first account that comes up will be their default account, which is Coctosan Electronics. Okay, so there we go. It's already enabled. But you'll see that they have an account switcher since they have access to more than one account. So I can click. Now, for some of you, you've seen this before, using customer grouping. The customer grouping is now obsolete, because we now have this new schema. So I can just mouse over that, and I can very quickly move between accounts, just like we did before with grouping. But it's far easier to manage. You don't have to deal with fake email addresses and all that kind of crap that we were doing before. So I can move between any of these accounts that this user has access to, like that. It's really great. So, and each account, as you might imagine, has its own set of, everything. It has its own set of payment methods and everything. So they are independent in that regard, but you can bind multiple users to any customer. So let's go back to our session. And I'm getting close to 10 minutes. I did not want to go more than that. So I'm going to try to wrap this up because this is just supposed to be very quick. All right, you'll notice that there is a little checkbox here for show inactive users. If I check that off, all it does is show me any users, not customers, but any user that doesn't have access to any customer. And so if this user tries to log in, it's kind of like being suspended, because you'll notice we don't have a suspend an account. You just simply remove all their access to any customer, and now they can't do anything. So in effect, once you see that they no longer have access, they can't even log in. It will just say you don't have access to any accounts, and to contact support. So in this case, for this one, I think if we were to try to log in, should give us an error, hopefully. Yeah, they have no default customer account access, so they can't log in. So if you're wondering, like, hey, how do I suspend a user? Just remove their access to any account. That's all you got to do. If a user is the primary, like this one, and you try to remove them from that, it won't let you. Okay, so you can't. In fact, yeah, you can't do that here. You're probably wondering, well, why is there a delete user record? That's a very good question. This menu item is going to go away. It's just there right now, and this is the last thing I'm going to touch on. If you run into an issue, and there's a few accounts out there, and I can definitely assist you if you're one of these, where you have duplicate users, and that's usually people who had a lot of sub accounts, and they were having to create email addresses again that had like an underscore in them, and so there were a couple instances where those accounts somehow a duplicate got in, and a duplicate's going to really mess things up. So rather than having to keep alerting, me or anybody in support here that, hey, I can't, reset this password, this person can't log in, I decided just for now, I'm going to go ahead and allow you to do this, but it's going to give you this big warning. So, like, let's say that this customer has no access, and you know that they're not going to have access, and it's not even a valid record. If you click delete user record, it's going to give you this big caution. Delete this user. It even tells you the record ID, and that's really for reference purposes if you need to, send a screenshot of this to us to check into it. And it says flat out, this is a destructive delete. Only do this if the user is a duplicate, because you don't need to delete it. Okay, just so you understand. If you don't want to see it, the default view is to have that turned off. So you should only see normally user records that do have access to an account. So if you are seeing a lot of accounts here, if you're in the inactive mode, or I should say, if you see an account here and they're not valid anymore, just remove their access to any customers, and then you won't see them on here anymore. All right, hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions, just open a support ticket and we can clarify it. But anyway, that's the important thing here, is how to deal with user accounts, user records, and how they relate to a customer account. A lot of thought went into this, believe me. Like this has been a long standing problem where, how do you deal with situations where you have portals with multiple levels of users, and then you have potentially one user that needs to log in to a whole handful of different accounts. Maybe they're a manager of like it's a company that has many locations, right? You just want to give that one user access to all those locations. Now you can do that, and you don't have to worry about their email duplicating. So the bottom line is, I think we're going to have a little bit of growing pain here, because I know that there's going to be some issues where with potentially duplicated email addresses or whatever, that we just got to get rid of. We got to purge those out. And if there was a duplicate user record, let me go back in here. It's possible that we delete the wrong duplicate. No, not the wrong one, but the one that has the password set. So if there was, for example, 2 of this Amy's here, and I delete one, well, I might have deleted the one that the user's been logging in as. So it's not a big deal. You'll probably just have to have them reset the password. That's all. So if they're complaining that hey, I can't log in anymore, just say I don't know. You can basically, you just want to resend them a password reset, and they'll be good to go. If not, just let me know. We can check into it, but that's most likely the problem. All right. Anything else? There's a whole bunch of other information, and I'm going to be making some tutorial videos to show how to use things. But this one, all right, I'm at 15 minutes. This is a 15-minute video I'm hoping will get most people through, or get over that initial hump when this goes live, so that you're not freaking out like, hey, what's going on with my users? All right. And just understand, let me just reiterate one more time. You don't have an automations tab anymore that shows, that has a field for who's going to get, billing automation emails. From now on, it's just users under the users tab, and then here's where you, where you select whether they will get billing automations. All right, and the reason why that is because every single user that gets an email, every single time an email goes out, each user is given like a token, all right, that is associated with their email. And that's why we now have all this stuff, email opener data. We can now see delivery attempts. Every single email you send out going forward, if you're using our email service not your own, you'll have access to if it was clicked, when it was opened. You'll know information about the opener, if it was, what browser, things like that. All right, just mainly it's just metrics so that you can, mainly for the purpose of troubleshooting, especially on our end. If we're trying to figure out why an email message didn't get to somebody, well, now we can see that information. All right. So this one's more recent. You'll see that I can see delivery attempts and opener data, because it went out through the dev server, and that will support these kind of lookups. If it's older, you'll just get like this. It'll just say the delivery information is not available. All right, I went way too far over on this, so I apologize that it's a little bit long, because I know your time is valuable, and there's a lot of stuff that you're gonna. There's a little bit of a learning curve with this one, but trust me, I know you're gonna be. This is gonna be way better. I think you'll be pleased once you get the hang of it. With navigating, you're gonna find it to be way easier to use. You can do quick lookups on stuff. You can also do it over here. Very quickly open up stuff. Yeah. So I'm sure we're going to run into a few issues, because this is a major release that's got over a year work that went into this. So I mean, we're talking thousands of hours and thousands of lines of code that were written. So I'll just say try to test everything as thoroughly as possible. And even as I'm rolling this out and doing QA work on it, and I find a little tweak needed here and there, so I'm aware that there's a lot of new stuff here, and there is potential for something to have been missed, but I think it's pretty stable. I don't want to wait longer to release it, so it's going to be coming out today, and we're just going to fix anything. If anything is wrong, we're just going to hunker down and fix it. We're not. I think at this point, rolling back is not an issue, and not going to be a possibility. All right, we got to stick with this and move forward. So that's it for now. I hope this is useful for anybody if you're running into user issues. If there's anything going on, like I've got automation disabled at the moment, and I won't turn that on until all the QA is done, and then I will do a few more tests with that. So if you run into any issues with that as well, just open up a support ticket and we'll track it down. All right. Hope you're having a great weekend, and a happy Easter, and I'll be releasing more information as soon as I wrap up this QA testing and get it turned on.